Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a wonderful day so far. So, let's see, a couple of things. I'm really looking forward to today's guest. If you haven't heard of them, GigaOm, they run a great publication, and, we are going to be talking to the CEO of the company all about, AI. And this is a subject that is coming around more and more. And, our guest has written a book on the matter, and I think that if you are at all fuzzy on the subject, this would be a great segment for you, and of course, a great book for you to check out. So also, in the second part of the program, if we have time, we will be doing computer and technology news, where we cover everything and anything having to do with, what's latest and greatest in technology. So all that and more, and of course you can check that out at computeramerica.com. While you're there, check out the social media contest brought to you by Logitech, and check out the live video stream brought to you by OWC. So with that being said, we're just going to go ahead and jump right into this. No point leaving our guests hanging. And so once again, GigaOm, you may remember them. They we're gonna get the full background from our guests. But joining us by phone is Mr. Byron Reese. So Byron, welcome on to Computer America. Hope you're doing well. And thanks for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's go ahead and get some background on GigaOm, because that's one of those websites and publications that really tickles the back of the brain, and it's a long a long time ago tickle. That just give us an outline, because I think GigaOm was relaunched, correct?
GigaOm dates back to the very, very beginning of the century. And so it has a long and illustrious career. Right now, it is a technology research company. Mm-hmm. So we try to help businesses prepare for technology. Obviously all the technology that's coming down their way. So we help enterprises make sense of that. The company has had a long and storied history and has gone through some changes. We don't do nearly as many events as we used to, and so forth. But the core has always been providing enterprises insights about technology.
Right, and that, I guess, works in very well into what you're here to talk about, which is some insight into artificial intelligence. And I guess, actually, before we even do that, we should talk about your background. How did you get involved with GigaOm, and how did you get involved with writing this book?
Yeah, I go out and give a fair number of talks. I get invited to different events. And what I found is that over and over, after talks, kind of no matter what I spoke on around technology, I would take Q&A. And the first question I would always get is, what's going to happen with jobs because of artificial intelligence? And usually, actually, what they would say is, what should my kids study today to make sure they're going to have jobs in the future? What should I study today to make sure I'm going to have a job in the future? And I got really interested in that question because I think it's very answerable. And then other kinds of questions. The second most common question, hands down, I get is, there are all kinds of people who tell me we should be afraid of artificial intelligence, that it's going to kill us all or take over the world or go rogue. Should I worry about this?
Right.
And again, I wanted to try to bring some insights on that. What I determined, by the way, in the book I wrote, it doesn't just tell you, or doesn't at all actually tell you what I think are the quote answers to those questions. And that may sound shocking. What happened is the more I thought about it, the more I realized that the questions themselves, what effect will computers have on automation and jobs, is not actually a technical question. It is a philosophical one. It wraps up with what people are and what people can do. Likewise, what an artificial intelligence can or cannot do is not really a technical issue. Like, whatever is possible will happen. I really wanted to kind of understand what are the different options and what are the different assumptions underneath those different assumptions beneath those different viewpoints. And that's the book I wrote, which tries to get at the core of why some people are so afraid of this technology and some people aren't, or some people think it's going to wipe out all the jobs and some people don't. I really wanted to understand that, because the debate itself can get kind of confusing if you just hear this wide range of opinions.
Right. And, and that's something that, and as I mentioned before the show, I did have a chance to kind of thumb through the book, and that was a great point that you made. It's something that when it comes to a lot of different fields, be it, especially like the really contentious ones, like the ones that can make you a lot of money, like when it comes to artificial intelligence or cryptocurrency or, anything like that, that there's a lot of exactly that opinions, and it's anyone's best guess. And you mentioned people like Bill Gates and oh my God, Elon Musk. There we go, and a couple others that really, Stephen Hawking, that really had differing views, and in some cases, polar opposite views for what this technology could eventually lead to. So I guess a good place to start would be, and you mentioned that this is a philosophical question. Why did you decide to frame it that way? Because, no one else is really doing that. They're saying, here's what's going to happen, period. When you first start out with your book, like one of the first sentences I read was, we have to start 100,000 years ago. And I thumbed to the last page because I was like, there's only about 400 pages here. How's he going to get 100,000 years into today? And I guess why approach this philosophically as opposed to maybe looking at the nearest manufacturing revolution we had in the early 1900s, late 1800s.
Well, I think with regard to automation, you can look at that exactly that way, and let's start there actually, because we're going to have technological advances come ever quicker. Like, everybody agrees on that. And what will that do to employment? And if you think about it, you only have three really possible answers. One is that there's going to be a sizable number of people that are not able to add economic value in this new world, and that we're going to have kind of a permanent Great Depression, and there are going to be some people that just can't find work. Right. And that's one viewpoint that a lot of people have. There's a second viewpoint that says, don't kid yourself. The machines will be able to do every single thing a human can do. They will write better poetry. They will write better movie scripts. They will be better presidents. They will be better CEOs. That the minute a machine can learn something new faster than a human, that's it. They're going to do everything better than us. So we're all going to be unemployed. And then there's a third viewpoint that says, no, all technology does in the end is increases human productivity. And if it increases human productivity, there's no such thing as robots taking all the jobs. What will happen is people will continue to use new technology to increase their own productivity and their own wages. I try to argue each of those in the book. I take a good amount of ink to make the case for each one of them, because you've probably heard bits of all of those cases made. I try to critique them all. And if I were to net it out for myself, I find it quite compelling that when you look back across 250 years of history, let's just look at the U.S. for a moment. The U.S. has had full employment. Other than the Depression, we've had unemployment between 5 and 10% for 250 years, other than the Depression, which wasn't caused by technology. And yet, in that time, we've had technological advances on par with AI. I mean, I'm bullish on artificial intelligence, don't get me wrong, but we had electricity come along in that time, and we electrified industry in 7 years. We replaced animal power, that used to be the only form of non-human locomotion, with steam. We did that in 22 years. We had the assembly line, which is kind of an artificial intelligence that changed how you make things. And even though we had those technologies come along, they never caused unemployment. They didn't. They didn't cause economy-wide unemployment. Meanwhile, by the way, we've had rising wages for 250 years. Now, you can argue about recent dips or spikes or what have you, but you look back 50 years and 100, then 150, then 200, then 250. It's been, and so you have to say, why is it that we've had great economic upheaval and rising wages and full employment? Like, how does that happen? And the way I think it happens is that technology is really good at creating new jobs that are high-paying, high-skilled jobs. Like today it might be a geneticist. Right. And then it's really good at destroying jobs that are low skill and low wage, like an order taker at a fast food restaurant. And some people look at that and then they kind of snarkily say, do you really think that order taker is going to become a geneticist? Ha ha, of course not. And that's, I think, entirely the wrong way to look at it. Because what happens is college biology professor becomes a geneticist, and a high school biology teacher gets the college job, and a substitute teacher gets hired on full-time at the high school, all the way down. The question is not, can that person at the bottom of the skill level do that new high-skill job? That's not the question at all. The question is, can everybody do a job just a little harder than the job they have today? And I emphatically believe that the answer to that is yes. And if that is true, then every time technology creates jobs at the high end, high pay, high skill jobs, and destroys one at the low end, everybody gets a promotion. Well, that's the story.
And that's definitely a very pragmatic way to look at it. Just everyone has to just give a little bit more, or the chances that everyone has, just open up a little bit wider. That's great and all, but I mean, even you admit that there's way more unskilled or low skill labor jobs than there are positions for a geneticist. Like, are you assuming that as these lower skilled paying jobs that employ many more people, just because we have the workforce, we're going to employ people just because we can? Like, is the demand there? And
well, see, that is the bottom line of what makes a job. Sometimes we tend to think there's this bucket of jobs, and that's all there are. Or somehow things get added to this bucket of jobs, and there's this finite supply that there's scarce resource, but they're not. There's an infinite number of jobs. A job is created the minute that you take something, anything you want, a bunch of clay, you add technology and labor to it, and you make it worth more. You make a vase. And whatever the difference is between what that clay costs you and what that vase sells for, that is your wage. That is how much you can make. Now, because technology lets you do so much more with an hour, technology allows you to make more. So there's an infinite number of jobs. You look outside and just start thinking of everything that needs to be done in this world, and you figure out something that you can take something, charge people for, and make something worth more. Let's think about the internet itself for a moment.
Sure.
25 years ago, this year, Mosaic was released. So the first broadly available, broadly used consumer browser was released. And if somebody had said, hey, in the future, there's going to be 2 billion people on this thing. In 25 years, there's going to be 2 billion people. All these computers are going to be bolted together, and they're going to communicate with each other. What do you think is going to happen? Well, you might have been able to say, the newspapers are going to have a really hard time because they don't have to print in the future. And the yellow pages are going to have a hard time. And stockbrokers are going to have a hard time. And travel agents are going to have a hard time. And you know what? You would have been right about every one of those. Now, what we would have all missed is Google, Amazon, eBay, Etsy, Uber, Airbnb, and a million other companies that all were able to be created because the internet dropped the price of communicating to zero. And so nobody saw all of those things. Nobody saw the open source movement. Nobody saw any of that stuff coming, because it isn't until you're faced with those economics and you say, wow, I have this new thing. I can now communicate with people for zero. What can I do with that? And what you do with it is a million different businesses, $25 trillion worth of wealth created just by bolting machines together so they can talk to each other. Imagine how much wealth can be created if through a different technology you can make everybody smarter than they are today.
So, and here's something that maybe separates AI, although, you may be able to correct this. Computers have trickled down to the point where everyone has them, either in the form of a smartphone, of a computer, of a publicly accessible terminal, maybe in a library, something like that. The majority of people, at least in the United States, and more so in the world at large, have access to the internet through the device in their hand. Is AI heading that direction, or is AI currently being developed by Google, the military, a lot of different companies? I mean, is everyone going to have their access to their own version of an AI that will unlock that potential, productivity?
Great question. So the first thing to remember, and what I'm about to say nobody disagrees with, this is just simple definitions, like everybody on the planet agrees with this, is that when we say AI, people mean one of two different things, and they're very different things.
Right.
So one is something we call narrow AI. That's the longer name of it. And that is what we know how to do today. And that is the thing that filters the spam on your email. It's the thing that routes you through traffic. It's an AI that can do one thing, like play chess, but don't ask it to make you a pot of coffee, right?
Right.
So that is a thing, narrow AI. And then there's something else we mean, which is general AI. And that is an artificial intelligence like in the movies. That's an iRobot, that was Sonny, that was Data in Star Trek, that's C-3PO in Star Wars. That's an AI that can do what a human can do. It's like MacGyver. It's like the MacGyver AI. Now, those two technologies may be completely unrelated. They both have AI in the name, but one is not just like a better version of the other. So the thing that people are afraid of is the second one, the general intelligence. So we don't know how to build that yet. And when we're going to get one is anybody's guess. Even among the experts who believe we're going to build one, they think it's between 5 and 500 years, depending on who you ask. So who knows? The other one, though, the narrow AI, the AI, you already have that. That I would say as many people, everybody listening to this already has that, uses that. It's already sinking into your life in every way. Like I said, if you have an email program that's filtering out spam, that's a narrow AI. If you have a microwave that can tell the popcorn stopped popping. If you have a cat food dish that refills itself when it runs empty. If you have any number of devices that what we have done, and what it is a very simple idea. What that kind of artificial intelligence is, what the reason we've been having advances in it lately is a simple idea, which is if you take data about the past, if you have enough of it, you can study that data and make predictions about the future. That's all it is. It isn't magic. Like it doesn't do anything that it just does a whole lot of that, but it doesn't do anything different than what you or I would do. We would sit down and look at some data about the past and make a guess about the future. That's all AI can do either. It can look at a lot more data than we can try a lot of different guesses, test those guesses and all of that, but that's all it's doing. So the underlying assumption behind AI is that the future is like the past. And many things that applies to spam in the future looks a lot like spam today. AI is really good at identifying a photo of a cat because a cat yesterday looked a lot like a cat's going to look tomorrow.
Right.
But other things it may not work very well on. It may not be able to tell the next thing I'm about to say, even if it studies everything I've ever said before. Banana, banana, banana. See, it didn't see that coming.
Right.
Because there are only so many things that you can say. We can study the past and make guesses about the future. And that's why it shouldn't be a fearful technology. If somebody just said, hey, we're going to study a bunch of data about the past so we can make better recommendations to you tomorrow. If we're going to look at all the restaurants you've enjoyed eating at in the past and suggest new ones tomorrow, there's nothing about that technology that's alien or threatening or anything. That's not what anybody's worried about, other than people who think that technology is going
Well,
to take too many jobs.
the only thing that in that same vein that we have seen bite us in the butt and do it very recently, I would say the whole thing with Facebook where they try to identify articles that you like, that you've read, that you were willing to share with your friends and coworkers and what have you, and they share and they gave you more of that similar type of news and what have you. And that led to, I guess, what we would call bubbles, where people were, they weren't getting the complete picture of the of news because they were only being recommended stuff that they would, be more likely to share and go viral and things like that. That led to a lot of problems, and I'm not saying it was the only problem, but a problem where it would say, here's what you like. Let's take your restaurants, for example. You like American, diners. That's your thing. And you will never know about this emerging new business, this emerging new ramen shop, because we have no indication that you would like that. So we're not even going to bring it up. Isn't that a problem with AI currently where, yeah.
Well, you're entirely right. There are, and don't get me wrong, when I say nobody's afraid of it, I mean in an existential way.
Oh, right.
Nobody's afraid your spam filter is going to overthrow the government. But you're right that these technologies often have unintended consequences, and they often change things in ways that we don't foresee, and all of that. I mean, they have all kinds of ways that they can be misused. They can be misused by governments. They can be misused by businesses. They can accidentally be misused if you train them with the wrong data. They can be big black boxes that out answers that are indecipherable to a human. I mean, there are all kinds of things like that that we still need to work out. It's with this new technology. So I agree completely that there are unintended consequences, pitfalls, and all of that. And so I shouldn't say that's nobody's afraid of this technology.
Right.
I should have qualified that further and said that nobody thinks that technology is going to turn on them and become sentient and all the rest.
That's something that's maybe a couple years ago, not today, but a couple of years ago, and especially with Stephen Hawking, everyone was worried that it's like, when is that one advancement going to come that we're going to be like, all right, press that enter key for the last time, and suddenly everything snaps into existence, and it suddenly wants to work for itself. And that goes back to your definition of general AI, where it's just, not really possible, because at the moment we are talking to simple machine, or not even, complex machines, but machines nonetheless that are, just trained for one thing. Like a chess playing robot is not suddenly going to have an opinion on the war in the Middle East. It's just not in its purview at all. And we're very, very far away from that. So I guess to bring this back around to jobs and things like that, so you think that narrow AI, what we currently have, that's going to make great leaps and bounds, and that's just going to, I guess, hopefully improve everyone's quality of life? Like what is the eventual end of narrow AI?
With regards to employment specifically?
Yeah, to jobs.
Yeah, so I mean, for putting employment aside, I mean, start with the fact it's going to help diagnose illness better and help people make better choices. And if you have a pocket lawyer, it's going to be the best pocket. If your smartphone has a therapist in it, it's going to be the best one in the world. If your smartphone has an interior designer in it, it's going to be the best one. Like every single thing you do, it's going to be able to, in theory, make better. With regard to employment, I mean, I'm incredibly bullish about it. If AI is, as I describe it, the ability to make better decisions, let's use this technology to make better decisions, study the past, make better decisions. To say it's a bad technology puts you in the position of having to argue for ignorance. No, it's better if we're ignorant, if we make bad decisions, if we make uninformed decisions. In the end, what technology does, very simple thing, whether it's AI or a radio, it multiplies what humans are able to do. I mean, more people can hear you right now because you're using a piece of technology than if you stood on your rooftop and yelled.
Right.
So what it does is it multiplies human ability, and that's inherently a good thing. That is always a good thing, as long as you're not, talking about warfare or something. But in terms of automation and employment, making people more productive is inherently a good thing, and that's also the path to higher wages. You can move more bricks with a forklift than you can carry on your back. Therefore, a forklift operator can make a higher wage than somebody who moves bricks around their back. AI is going to you're going to be able to hold a device in your hand that makes you, in whatever job you're doing, that much better at it and that much more productive. And so it's only going to increase people's wages and opportunity.
And that is something that we're really going to struggle with, I think, in the next 5 to 10 years, where we do computer and technology news here on the show when we have time. And we have an article today that Citibank is going to be laying off 10,000 and not 10,000 people, but it's not bank tellers like everyone would assume because of ATMs, but there are 10,000 people who run, I think, like their infrastructure because of automation and machine learning, like we've been talking about. 20,000 operational staff. They're going to be cut over the next. I think they said the next 5 years. So and combine that with the fact that McDonald's is getting into like more and more places are getting those self-serve kiosks, things like that. I mean, there's going to be some conversation to be had about how fast we adopt this. And you say that you're bullish. Should we allow really just kind of any company, regardless of if we have access to the source code of the AI or things like that, should we just allow this to kind of take its natural course, or does this have to be regulated? Like how much hands-on should we have on AI?
You mean, I'm trying to hear two different questions there. One is, do we regulate AI in terms of people need to know why decisions about them are being made and there needs to be transparency and all that? Or are you saying, should we regulate the adoption of it so businesses can't adopt it as quickly?
Yeah, kind of both.
Yeah.
Kind of both. Because let's tackle the
first one,
the regulation of adoption.
Right. The first one about transparency and all of that. That's an ongoing debate about if an AI makes a decision about you, do you have a right to know why you got denied that loan, for instance? And that either needs to pass on that entirely, or that's a long conversation because it's a nuanced question. If you're saying should we somehow hold up the adoption of AI,
well, should we control it?
I think that's a hard question.
Sure.
Look, the easiest way to make a bunch of new jobs is to require everybody in the country to work with one arm tied behind their back. Right? Because then you need more people to rake the yard, and you need more people to work the assembly line, and you need more people to type on the keyboard. You need everything. So that's the best method to make jobs, is just impair people. Everybody has to do their job blindfolded, and we're going to need a lot more people because of that. Now, all their wages are going to fall because their productivity went way down, because you make them work with an arm tied behind their back, or you're making them work blindfolded. So if that is a ridiculous proposition, then the idea that we shouldn't take people who essentially have a hand tied behind their back and untie it, if we shouldn't empower people with more productivity, it's the exact same argument to say, no, we don't want people to be able to, we don't want to give people a third arm to work with, hypothetically. Because they'll just work too fast, and we'll need fewer of them. It's very hard on anybody who loses their job due to technology.
Right.
It's happened to me, and it is unsettling. But unsettling is going to be the new normal. Like, every farmer became a factory worker, and every factory worker becomes a web designer, and every web designer. I think, let me put it this way. I think over the course of any given half century, half the jobs are lost. That's a real broad rule of thumb, and I've tried my hardest to figure that number out. But I think between 1950 and 2000, we lost about half the jobs, mainly manufacturing. And I think between 1900 and 1950, we lost about half the jobs, a lot of farm jobs. Same thing between 1850 and 1900, again, a lot of farm jobs. So the economy does that all the time. It churns through. It creates better jobs and destroys worse jobs. But why do we know that? Because you have 150, 200, 300 years of rising standard of living among people.
Well, and Byron, I'm going to have to stop right there. Music's playing in the background. We have to go to break. We'll be back in a couple minutes. Hopefully you can join us on the other side.
Can't wait.
Perfect. So everyone, Byron Reese, CEO of GigaOm, and you can check him out, gigaom.com. Everyone, Computer America. We'll be right back.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on. If you missed any part of today's show, please feel free to head on over to wherever podcasts are heard. Some of the big ones are, of course, things like iTunes, Google Play Store, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever. And you can listen to Computer America, today's entire live show, rebroadcast at your convenience. So check that out if you missed today's conversation, because hey, it's been a lot of fun and it is still ongoing. So continuing on with us is Mr. Byron Reese. He is the CEO of GigaOm and wrote the book The Fourth Age: Smart Robots, Conscious Computers, and the Future of Humanity. Very ambitious thing to set out to try to answer. And Byron, we had to cut you off there as we were talking about displacing jobs, I guess more so than losing jobs, because as you have made mention, new jobs are found, new jobs are created. There's shifts, but there's not flat out losses.
Right, and like I said, I'm not trying to minimize it. It's a rough transition on everybody who's been doing something for a certain amount of time to see that go away. But I do want to say that if there is a job that a machine can do, forget whether we have a machine to do it. Just imagine in your head a job a machine could do. If you make a person do that job, there's a word for that, and that is dehumanizing. If you say going in, there's nothing about this job that requires a person, we just are going to use a person because we haven't built a machine to do it, then that's not a good use of people. People should do things that only people can do, things that you cannot conceive of a machine doing. Now, that may sound beyond aspirational. For 10,000 years that we've had agriculture, it's taken 90% of our people to farm. And now it takes 2% in this country, largely because of automation and technology. And I think, therefore, we showed that a machine can do a whole lot of that work, and that's not a great job to have 90% of people do. And so I think what we want to do and again, supporting people with retraining and ending the direct taxation of labor and all kinds of policy implications and all of that. But what you in the end want to do is get rid of all the jobs that machines can do so that people can be freed up to do what people can do. Only people can do. I'm very bullish on people. I think we are beyond exceptional, and I think all over the world there are bound to be Marie Curies and Leonardo da Vinci's, and that because they're impoverished or they have to work 14 hours a day to feed their families, they can't actually achieve any of their potential. And I think we are heading towards a world where everybody can, where we're going to have machines do everything machines can do, and people will do things only people can do.
So, and here's, I guess, the next part of that same question, where you say that people shouldn't do the jobs that automation, machine learning, that kind of thing can do. I haven't heard too many people who come on this show, kind of say, or kind of really outline that is a job that a machine will never do. Because you mentioned everything from CEO to low skill wage to manual labor, things like that. I mean, are there
that's a viewpoint.
jobs?
That's a viewpoint, and let's talk about that, because that's the question that people do disagree on. And so the first question you have to ask is, are you a machine? Are you a machine? Are people machines? We have on GigaOm, we have a kind of a survey, and what we find is that when we ask people in the Bay Area who are in technology, are you a machine? They overwhelmingly answer yes. And if you believe that, then you can build a mechanical person. And if you can build a mechanical person, then you're going to be able to make a better person, and over time, that person's going to get better and better and better. And yes, there's nothing a machine could do that a person can't do. I find, however, in the rest of the world, most people do not believe that they are machines. We, after all, have life, which is something we don't understand. We have a mind, which is all of the things we're capable of doing that, you have a sense, your brain has a sense of humor, but it's unlikely your liver does. Like, your brain does these things that we don't know how an organ does. And then finally, you have consciousness. You experience the world. You actually feel warmth, whereas a computer can measure the temperature of something. It cannot experience warmth. And so I believe, and again, the book argues the range of positions, but I personally do not believe that people are machines.
Right.
It's unproven to me that we are. Yeah. And if that is the case, then no machine can do what we can do. And so things having to do with empathy, a machine cannot empathize. It cannot get outraged. It cannot be creative. It cannot, they can do almost nothing if you look through that lens. They can do only repetitive things.
So I remember that part of the book. You had a bunch of great different arguments, and I definitely like that. That you weren't just, here's what some people believe, but but I don't believe that, so that doesn't matter. Like, you didn't take that approach. I like that. But you said that are people machines? Are people animals? Are people kind of people? Are they something else? Are they human? And the only thing I can kind of think to that is, just like you said, AIs right now, they're narrow AIs. They are created by people. I think that in and of itself is enough to kind of push the fact that, maybe machines can't do what people can do. But, as of this point, people are creating AI. People are, I guess, the humanity behind the automation currently. So, automation is not automating itself, or at least not in all fields. Wouldn't that mean that, that intrinsic, value that humans have, isn't that being kind of given, and we can kind of say, all right, AI doesn't have to have that humanity because currently we're directing it, and, that creativity, is there already in AI?
Well, I'm not sure I'm following you. You're saying that because that we're the creative element in the AI, and therefore it gets creativity through us.
Right. It's this idea.
I don't know. I think people in their minds way overestimate what the technology can do, because you see so many movies, and people do something called reasoning from fictional evidence. But you think of the Jetsons. Now, the Jetsons was set 100 years in the future, and the show's over 50 years old, and what it means is we live closer to the time the Jetsons was set in than when the Jetsons was made. And they had Rosie the robot.
Mm-hmm.
Now, aside from the fact she could carry on a conversation, which I've never found a conversational AI that can answer my first question I ask it: what's bigger, a nickel or the sun? Never found one.
Mm.
What is it that we have built AIs to do that Rosie can do? Anything. We made the Roomba, which can go around and bumping into things and vacuum your carpet. Okay, I will give you that. Other than that, name anything in your house a robot can do. Can it do the dishes? Clean the windows? Can it? I mean, nothing. Like,
Right.
I heard one person. She runs a robot company, and she said if there's ever a robot uprising, just wait 15 minutes, and all their batteries are going to be dead. Likewise, computers and programs, if you train them to do something very specific, like play chess, they do a fantastic job. But that's not really what life looks like. Games are kind of this outlier where there's these defined rules, point is understood, a winner is understood, but life is not like that. You know, who's winning this radio interview? How many points have been scored? Like, life is organic, and machines do a terrible job at anything like this. And so they're really, it's kind of fun to speculate what's it going to be like when the machines can whatever. But the truth of the matter is they are as dead as fried chicken. I mean, they don't know anything. They experience nothing. You can train them extensively on some data set, and they get good at spotting cats. But this isn't a technology that should threaten the most amazing things there are in the known universe, and that's us. Like, they're not even in the same category. So I think there's a lot of people out there who want to scare people and to thinking that, you know, if you always the headlines and machines are trying to steal your job. They're not trying to steal your job. If they're trying to steal your job, they sneak into HR at night and mark your name out and put theirs in. I mean, they're not willful like that, and there's nothing like that going on. There are certain tasks that are so rote that we should make machines do them instead of people.
Yeah,
and yay.
Yeah, indeed. And I guess the point I was trying to get to was that to create another AI or to retrain it is to start over from scratch, give it a new data set, and give it a new task. And eventually, it's going to do a pretty good job. I guess just at the core of my question was, even if a Roomba can't clean a window, couldn't we create another AI in a very short period of time, train it on a new data set, and then we do have a window washer? Like that ability to multitask or do different tasks comes from us, because then we just, kind of pop over and say, all right, now we need one for this. Like, just like a constant Band-Aid until we have, kind of a working society with a lot fewer jobs. But yeah, it's, like I said way at the beginning, it's hard to see the eventuality of AI and this relation that we're talking about this entire time. It's really hard. So I'm surprised that you wrote a book on it, because it's so hard. Right.
Yeah, DARPA did a challenge a few years ago, not that long ago, and they wanted to see if a robot could climb stairs and open a door. Not could it do it on its own, like you could have a remote control. But if you just think of everything that goes into that, like how you grab the knob and how you turn it and how much resistance is right, and when it gets hard, do you just turn harder, and which direction did you turn the doorknob? And by the way, which direction did you pull or push the door? All of that stuff humans do effortlessly, and all of that stuff machines struggle with. And we've not been able to make a robot that can clean windows, because even if it can identify the window, if it pushes just a little too hard, it breaks the glass. And if it pushes just a little too soft, it just smears the window around.
Right.
And humans are fantastic at that. And those are the simplest tasks. Imagine how it is that humans, when we do things that really are complex and challenging to us, imagine trying to build a machine to do that. But again, over and over, people tend to overestimate when surveyed how far along all these technologies are.
Right. No, and I can completely see that happening because what we do see AI or machine learning doing, it's it's sometimes it's impressive. If you're watching the video portion, we have one of the DARPA robots, and it's standing in front of the door. Something goes wrong, and it collapses on itself and doesn't even attempt to open the door. It fails at standing up. Something that a 6 month to a 2 year old can do instinctively. uh, Little things like that. Obviously, I think people are just so light years ahead of robots, and everything like you said before, when it comes to warmth instead of temperature, just things that they'll probably never get to, at least in my lifetime. And I mean all that, but then we see a robot do a backflip, and we see it, kind of do the perfect Olympic ending and the flare, like. They're advancing very quickly, though, and what they can't do, there's a lot of smart people working to make it happen. So, I guess let's see. Another place that we can take this conversation is, where do you think, just talking about AI and just having such a vast knowledge of it, where do you think people are going to start really noticing AI in their lives? Is this technology first going to be a consumer product to make our lives easier? Is this going to be used to better advertise to us? And I know this is all happening in all these fields, but where is this really going to start revolutionizing people's lives?
I think about everything you do just kind of in the course of compliance with your life. Like, you have to fill out taxes, right, every year, and you have to do expense reports for work, maybe. I don't know, and you have to keep track of the mileage in your car, so you can deduct or whatever. I don't know what anybody's individual situation is, but just think of all the annoying things you have to do. You have to renew your driver's license and get all of that. Is all stuff that we really want AI to do for us. I live a much easier life than my great-great-grandparents, and it isn't because I work harder than they did. It's because I have technology, and an hour of my labor yields a lot more than an hour of their labor. Even just with electricity, like, I can do more, but I have computers, I have all of these other things. I would suggest that anybody listening who's concerned about these technologies or wondering how they can apply these technologies to their life, is look at ways you can automate things out of your own life. Because to the extent you can do that, you actually buy back your truly scarce resource, which is, your life on this planet. And you actually buy that back. And so you actually get that back by automating parts of your life. So where will we first see it happening? Where will we first experience it in our life? I think it's great at filter spam. I think in a meaningful way, when it starts taking the drudgery out of life that everybody has to do, then I think you have a technology that really is giving people a higher quality of life.
So there's that, and then there's also how, in what form does it take? Because I was just flipping through the book, and I remember the part where should AIs be implanted into people? You can look at things in media. It happens all the time that you add that voice in the back of your head, but then you make it, I guess, crowdsource, and you have an AI. I think Cortana or any digital assistant, and they make you a more productive person, but they do it kind of very intimately. And I guess there's a lot of ways that you can take machine learning and do that for, let's say, prosthetics, or you can do it for, just mixing man and machine has long been used in media. Is that a future where, AI isn't just something that the tax office uses, but it's something that, when you are 2 years old, you're gonna get your first AI implant. Is that a future you see?
Well, I cover it in the book. I explore the pros and cons. I don't weigh in on it personally because if I believe these are all philosophical questions, which I do, then nobody's reading my book for me to tell them what they should believe. They already believe something. I just want to help people kind of think through the implications of what they already believe.
Okay.
What you're asking me, though, is what do I think? And we have this brain of ours, and people think, and we don't understand how it works. It's a little embarrassing. And people say, well, it's because you have 100 billion neurons. It's not, there's so many of them. It's not surprising we don't understand how it works. I wish it were the case. But it turns out there's this worm called the nematode worm. 80% of all animals on this planet are nematode worms. They're really tiny, but as long as a hair is wide. And their brains have 302 neurons. You have 100 billion. They have about as many as there are Cheerios in a bowl of cereal. And people have spent 20 years trying to model those 302 neurons in a computer to get it to duplicate the behavior of that worm. Because a worm does all these smart things with 302 neurons. Truth is, we don't know how a neuron works. We don't know how a memory is encoded. Your brain doesn't have a spot in it where the lyrics to Louie Louie are recorded the way that a computer hard drive has a spot where those lyrics live.
Mm-hmm.
Your brain doesn't. Your brain doesn't have a processor the way a computer does. Your brain commingles storage and processing in ways we don't even understand. We don't know, let alone we don't know how you experience things. So the idea that somehow, even if that's mechanistic, even if it is just a big machine in your head, which it may or may not be, but even if it's just a big machine in your head, we are so far, we can't read a thought out of the brain, and we certainly can't write a thought. And the idea that your brain, which has the consistency of Jell-O, you can somehow put an electrode on it, and somehow it's going to interface with your brain. It's another one of those things you see in science fiction, and you think, yeah, that could happen. But we are nowhere near being able to do that right now. There are all kinds of really clever things with sensors in jackets that can poke perhaps people who can't hear, can tap them in the back a certain way that they're going to be able to hear by sensing. I mean, there's all kinds of things like that. But in terms of directly interfacing with the brain, which is the holy grail in some people's minds, I'm convinced. I don't believe. Look, all of this begins with the assumption that you are a machine. And if you begin with that assumption that your brain is a machine, then sure, I'm sure there's some way we're going to learn to interface with that machine. If you don't accept that assumption, then we have no reason whatsoever to believe that is possible.
Right. No, and we definitely talked about that. We have like 5 minutes left here in the interview, so let's get to some different questions, including. You mentioned that the GigaOm, you guys do a lot for corporates or enterprise, kind of surveys, data analysis, things like that. If you had the ear of every company out there working on AI, what is a question that you'd like them all to kind of work on? Is it, what is the next step of AI? Should we be sharing what we learn about AI with each other? What is something that you'd like to tell companies about AI that they maybe aren't considering right now?
Are you talking about leading edge companies like Google and Facebook that are creating it, or are you talking about businesses that are thinking about using it?
Probably the ones using it, because Google and IBM and those they're working on it and they're at the bleeding edge. But those who will be utilizing it in the near future, what should they be asking?
Well, I would say that every business on the planet, and I'm sure there are exceptions, can be made better with the technology. There's a famous story about a Google employee whose parents owned a cucumber farm, and his mother would sort these cucumbers by color and length and number of spikes and all that. And he wrote with a Raspberry Pi and an Arduino and a Linux box, he wrote an AI that did that. So if you can make a case for using AI to automate cucumber sorting, then there's probably a whole lot more things that you can make a case to use it for.
Mm-hmm.
So I would look around your business for anything that looks like data could be used to enhance it. And that's going to be, I think it's almost every business process. And again, plenty of exceptions, but think every business process can be made 10% better pretty easily by employing data. And if you make purchasing 10% better and hiring 10% better and logistics 10% better and all of these things 10% better, you really do have a material effect on a business. And so I think we're at that state where anybody listening can use this technology. You don't have to have a data scientist. You don't necessarily even have to write your own tools. You don't have to have, but there are going to be AI-enabled things out there that will take data you have and apply them to your business.
Right. And really, we've even seen companies that have started up over the past couple of months that are explicitly training AIs, showing the capability, and then they go off and find someone to buy their individual AI. It's it's a very strange time. It reminds me a lot of, it seems like ages ago, but like a year or two ago, when blockchain was coming around and everyone had the term blockchain or some similar buzzword, and they were knocking down everyone's door because that was the great new technology. And I guess going forward, in 6 months, I don't even know what we're going to be talking about because let's see, there's an article today that's the proper IBM made a new chip. I mean, there are people making new GPUs, but they made a new silicon CPU that is 100 times more energy efficient. And when you see breakthroughs like that on the daily, and I kid you not, on the daily, I mean, last thing we'll talk about here, Byron, how fast, I guess we kind of already answered that. AI, should people be worried? Let's leave it at that. Last word, should people be worried about AI?
No, in the end, it's the power to make better decisions, and that is a good thing.
All right. No, that's very, very well said, very succinct. Talk about your book. Again, I have it here in my hand, but people can't get it there because I only have one. If people want to read more about your book, where can they go to get it?
It's available everywhere. Fine books are sold, as they say. It's called The Fourth Age. You can also go to byronreese.com, BYRONREESE.com. I have a test there that says, will a robot take your job? It's 10 questions. You can run any job you want through it, like something your kids or you are thinking about, and it'll tell you. It doesn't ask for your email address or anything. With 10 questions, it'll score the job. But the book is called The Fourth Age, and thank you for having me on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. And keep pushing it because, hey, I don't see this particular job, being, kind of a televangelist and just doing what you do. I don't see that going away anytime soon. So, Byron, thank you for coming on the program. It was a lot of fun. And, hey, again, thanks. All right. So there he goes. And everyone, we're going to go ahead and, let's go ahead. Oh, and yeah, someone in the chat room asked if radio talk show host is going to go away anytime soon. And safe to say, probably. I have no doubt that a computer can do what I do much, much better. But in the meantime, hey, you're stuck with me. So put up with it. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into Computer America. And we did not get to computer technology news. We mentioned a couple of them. We have some of them in the show notes that you can check out if you feel like it. It's extra homework. But there were some very, very cool stories and some that, we just haven't been touching on at all. And those would be, the video game news. E3 is still going on. It's still making a lot of headlines. And if you want to hear all about E3, we're going to have a wrap up of it this coming Tuesday. So not today, but next Tuesday, we'll have Corey Gallagher on as we talk about all things coming out of E3, and we're going to sort through the madness. So, folks, thank you for tuning in. And again, thank you to our guest, GigaOm, Mr. Byron Reese, for joining us. And again, author of The Fourth Age. It was a very interesting conversation. And honestly, when it comes to, let's see. Honestly, if people ask me about AI and this whole thing, I think that his book does a really good job of, kind of encapsulating AI and its current arguments and its current form. So I would definitely recommend it to go read. So until next time, let's see, tomorrow on the program, let me get this straight from the horse's mouth. Tomorrow on the program, we have Sandy Berger joining us. And if all things go as planned, she is our consumer electronics expert. And hey, we're going to have a lot of fun talking to her. So folks, until next time, thank you for joining us. And Monday through Friday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Eastern, have a great one. Bye, everyone.